crazy allergy, and my eyes are very red. So it's scarier to see the red eyes than to see the sunglasses. I had to weigh the matter. It's like, shall I do it just red eye or sunglasses? And I figured I could explain the sunglasses easier than you got it.
It's glamorous.
Oh, it's glamorous.
Yeah, there you go.
I hadn't thought of that. But I know the red eyes are not glamorous.
It's Hollywood.
It's Hollywood. Okay. I want to thank Ivan for having given me such a gracious introduction. Many people don't. They kind of growl and say, oh my God, we've got Shirley Smith this evening. You'll understand that when I'm through, okay? People either love me or they hate me, so you don't know which yet. Okay. Ivan did not mention that I had been an opinion columnist.
I should have, sorry.
No, it's okay. You can't.
Too many hats for me to
Yo. An opinion columnist with awards from LA Press Club. Opinion columnist for 40 years. I have an opinion that generally riles people up. But I figure if I've got to write, there's no reason to write and make everybody happy. So I write and make myself happy. And I give that as a precursor to what I'm going to say this evening. It may offend some people, but that's what I do. I also do stand-up comedy. I didn't throw that in.
Yeah, it's very clear, Shirley. We can all see that.
That I'm funny. And I always say, whose audiences hate me or love me. My theory is there's no reason I should put on earrings, get on my wig, and not offend somebody. So we don't know who it will be. But I'm going to start with just asking all of you sort of an imagination to take a very brief walk with me back in time, back in history, back to the American slave system. Now I'm talking about prison, but I'm going back to slavery. Think about being pregnant. Difficult for the men, but
They should, though.
yeah, that's why I do that. Because think about it. You're a slave. You're pregnant, and you've been for 9 months with this child that will be born. And then the child is born. You've been picking cotton all this time, all through your pregnancy, and now it's time for the baby to be born. It may well be born in the cotton field, and maybe not. But whatever, you're going to tie it to your back, and you're going to keep on picking cotton, because that's what you do in this place you call home, which is the plantation. You discover, not from your own giving birth, but from those around you, that your child doesn't really belong to you, because you don't belong to you. You belong to the master. Now your child is safe while it's an infant and a toddler, because in the economy, it doesn't make any money. Nobody's going to buy your baby at the slave auction. But when your child gets older, your child is worth money, because that child will provide free slave labor. I don't know if anybody here saw the movie 12 Years a Slave.
We sure did.
You will remember, because when I speak on this, people always bring to my attention, so I now just put it in what I'm saying, the mournful wail of the woman whose 2 children were snatched from her and sold at the slave auction. They were no longer her children. Well, actually, they never were, but she felt that they were. So what does that little walk through history have to do with the American prison system and the women that I work with in California State Prison? Not much has changed. Now, some folks like to believe slavery was abolished. It was in name, but not in deed. So following slavery, there was something called Jim Crow. There was something called black codes. And this type of legislation was put together to once again imprison. Slavery was prison. But again, it was free labor. It was slave labor. The prisoners were not paid. And black women, like their male counterparts, were swept up and imprisoned. But then the question comes, but what about their children? Well, their children were left hither, dither, and yon. Most of them, from time back, were not able to keep track of their children. So we lost track of our children. That was then. But let's look at 2015. And that's why I'm here. Not necessarily about slavery, but I like to tie the two together, because that's exactly what our women who are mothers, who are incarcerated, are facing. Their children are being sold on the open market. It's like, well, that's absurd. This is this woman talking about. They're sold on the open market because what happens when poor, and it's not just black women, they just happen to be the largest population of imprisoned women. But it's poor white women, it's Chicanos, it's poor people. You know, what have we heard? I'm 80, I forget things. Anybody else out here forget things? Oh, just me? Thank you. Okay. What was my next line? Well, I can't remember it, so. That's why I like doing comedy, because I just get on the stage and they're waiting and I'm like, I forgot what I came to say. What has replaced the old slave master is the Department of Children and Family Services, is the Child Protection Agency. So it's very important that I emphasize that I am a former appointee to the Los Angeles County Commission for Children and Family Service. I am not a disgruntled employee that got fired, didn't like my supervisor, didn't get promoted. I am a person who was minding my own business. Ivan mentioned that I had 12 foster infants doing a good deed. I learned something about the department. I was appointed to the commission. Not only did I serve on the commission, and I say all this so that you go, well, maybe she knows what she's talking about. She's not just making it up. I served on the commission. Thanks to Adam Schiff, I received the Congressional Angel in Adoption Award. So I know something about adoption. So I am here to tell you that women, poor women, mothers who are incarcerated haven't got a clue as to what their rights are. They haven't got a clue that they're losing their children. Now, they've committed a crime. I'm not here to wipe away their crime. I do not feel sorry for them that they are incarcerated. But what I do recognize is when they burglarized your home, it didn't occur to them that they would never get to see their children again. Because once they get incarcerated, they don't get to find out what their rights are. There's certain process that they are to follow. They have to file papers. They are all supposed to have an attorney that advises them of this. And now I'm going to jump to our classes. We have been at California Institute for Women for the last 5 years. went there because, not because I was a do-gooder, I was minding my business, as I always am. And I had a meeting with Carol Lou. And we were doing not only the TV show, but we were doing workshops. And Carol Lou said, had you ever thought about doing workshops in the prison? And I'm like, no. How would I have thought of that? And she said, it's needed. Well, I had a friend, well, she's still a friend, who was a former inmate. So I called her and I said, look, when you were locked up, would it have been of help to you to have had some parenting classes so that when you got out, you know just a little bit more than you did when you went in? And she said, my God, yes. So she sat with me and we worked the programs that we did on the outside to see which ones would fit for the prison population. And so what we have at the prison, we've been there 5 years now, this gives us about 500 inmates who've come through our classes. Our classes are very popular. We have 150 on the waiting list. Well, how in the world did we get 150 on the waiting list? Word of mouth. Next to word of mouth is a belligerent woman who comes in and goes, you're going to sit your butt down right now. Don't come in my class with that mess. And they're like, where'd she come from? Right around the corner from where you live, okay? I know you because I met you when I was on welfare. I was in the welfare office. And they go, she was on welfare. We, in our first class, Chili, the friend I had who used to be an inmate, she comes to the class and she talks to the women about who she is, her crazy behavior. She was a runaway at the age of 10. When I was still trying to get my mother to buy me a J.C. Higgins bicycle from Sears, she and her friend had stolen a car and drove to San Francisco. That was her first arrest. She spent her life living on the streets. That's all she knew. She knew how to sell drugs, and she did very well. She met a man who had a Columbia connection, and they made a lot of money until he got his head blown off. Then she had to take over the business. These are the kinds of stories that exist in prison. So our class is with a waiting list, not because we come in and tell them what chapter to turn their book to, but because we come in with real life experiences. I know what it's like to have a social worker who comes to your house and wants to run your business. Been there, done that. And so not only do we have a waiting list, but we have women in our classes who come to us at the end of the class and say, can I take this class next time too? I've got 5 friends to recommend, because what they need is not a friend, not a teacher, but someone who wants to see their children not wind up where they are. First question we ask every class, how many of you would like to see your children right here where you are? No hands go up. How many of you would like to see your children go to college? Every hand is up. The sorrow is that nobody knows what it is that you do to make that kind of change. And so our curriculum is, we do communication. We stop screaming at your kids, stop cursing them out, talk to them in a tone like you would like to be talked to. Now this sounds probably kind of silly to us sitting here, but for people who've never heard that, and I'm going to jump to the end of my presentation, so I was going to put it at the end, but, so we do communication, and in our communication class, I think maybe the beginning of last year, we had my favorite student who said, I don't know what you talking about because I beat my kids. I'm going to slap them upside the head every time. And we let her get through. And I said, you know, that's against the law now. And you're already in prison. And you're in this class because you want to get your kids back. So how is this going to work? I'm going to tell them. They better not tell nobody I hit them. Like, I wouldn't trust my kid, but okay. Your neighbor may not like you, and your neighbor may report this. I don't care what you say, Miss Shirley. I kick ass. So she didn't come back to class for about 3 weeks. And when she came back to class, her mother has her kids. When she came back to class, she had a story that she was sharing that the 3-year-old they wanted to put in preschool. But Miss Shirley, we can't get her in preschool because she's so bad. All she do is fight. Where do you think she got that from? Them bad kids in the projects she be playing with. Like, aren't you the one who told me you kicked ass all the time? Yeah. And then I actually saw her kind of like put 2 and 2 together. But if you have a group of people who've never heard this, then I can't blame them for not doing any better. They don't know any better. Okay, so we do communication, we do home environment. No, you don't need a wall-to-wall TV. No, your kids do not need a TV in their bedroom. They do not need every gadget that's on the market. What they need is your time. Libraries full of books. Free. You mean we're supposed to read to our kids? Why would we do that? Well, you know, we can kind of chuckle because it's so foreign to us that some people have no concept of spending time with their kids, of finding free things that are available. So we do home environment. It's like you have a schedule. The kids go to bed at a given time. She just watching television and fall asleep. No, they go to bed at a given time. Now, you know, at first I tried to sound intelligent and say kids need their rest, but the fact of the matter is I'm sick of your ass, okay? I've had you all day. Good night. 7, good night. You mean you actually make them go to bed? They have a bedtime. So many of them, of our participants, have said the prison experience has been for them the first time they have ever had structure. Because they have just kind of lived life however they see fit. We have child development. Child development is, you got to understand what your expectations are. No, your 2-year-old shall not wash dishes. We do talk about responsibilities, but you cannot expect a 2-year-old. So, you know, you've got to learn where they are in their development. Well, I don't want to give them chores because I could do it better myself. Can't we all say that? Chores are a nuisance because you then have to go behind them. Our participants don't have the understanding that children have to be nurtured, have to be led, have to be taught. So then we do role modeling, and this is the great one. On the topic of role modeling, nobody ever had a clue that their kids were watching them and doing what they saw the mother do. So one mom puts up her hand and she says, you know, I'm glad you brought that up because my daughter was always coming home with lots of expensive makeup. And I said, my gosh, how can you afford that? And the daughter said, but I didn't. I shoplifted like you do. Our kids are who we are. So we do role modeling. We have resources. There are resources out there. But if you don't understand your responsibility to activate the resources. We had one participant who said she called and somebody told her, please hold. And we all know what that means, don't we? You're going to hold, and then you're going to hold, then you're going to be directed to another number, and it's still not going to be where you want to go. But a lot of people don't understand that. Then they said, please have a pencil and paper. And she said, they ain't going to be telling me what to do. So, these all sound very elementary, but these are all very, very essential to being able to put your life together when you've never had a thread that brought it together. We have different presenters. One of our presenters is the Pasadena police chief. Now you go, well, why in the world would you bring the police chief in? Well, I take the police chief in, one, because he's willing to go, and two, because our class participants have never had the opportunity to be face-to-face with someone with authority that they can actually ask questions and interact with. And they're kind of funny because they said to her, now what's your exact number? Because when I get out, I'm going to call you. But another of our presenters is the school board president, because we want our participants to understand what their role is. I can't just want my kid to go to college. Sounds like a good idea, but it's a job, it's work, and they have to do that. We have 2 attorneys, and the attorneys are the ones who bring the message home. The attorneys are the ones who say to the women, have you filed a 366 or whatever? And they say, what's that? Have you talked to your attorney? I've been in here 3 years, I've never seen an attorney. Do you still have your parental rights? What's that? How do you lose them? Those are the things they should know upon being arrested. So while the attorney cannot, we have 2 attorneys, cannot answer their direct individual questions, what we do is they can fill out a card and I will make it more general and then the attorney will answer. My child was adopted. How do I find the adoptive parents? They don't have a clue that adoption is final. That's it. You don't get visitation. Can I now go back to court and see if I can get my parental rights back? Well, you can try to file a whatever. So there's a series of things that they should have filed. But if nobody tells them, how will they know to file them? Now, why do I connect this to slavery? Now, teenage children, if you've got some teenage children, come on now, parents. Anybody in here have raised some teenagers? Nobody?
Raised.
Oh, well, right. Okay. Well, very quietly and very secretly, and nobody else will look at you except me, and I'm going to tell the truth. When they get to be teenagers, I'd farm them out anywhere. It's like, you don't have to pay me, just take them, okay? Teenagers are not our most popular youth in society. So, reverse from slavery, in the prison system, your teenage kids are safe because nobody wants to grab them. But when you have infants, when you have babies, when you have toddlers, the Department of Children's Services, we used to say this when I would do newborns. Those were the foster children. I had newborns. We had one newborn child at my home. She was white, she had blue eyes, she had blonde hair. And my friends would call up and say, Sarah Berman, she was the head of Adoptive, Sarah Berman's hovering over your house in a helicopter. Send that baby out. Because babies, easy to adopt, and not only that, they're worth something. Because the Department of Children's Services gets to collect federal dollars for every adoption that they do. Therefore, women who are in prison are just like women, in my opinion, who are slaves. Their kids aren't safe from the slave master, and the new slave master, in my opinion, is the Department of Children's Services. Now, why would I come to a group and say this? I go anywhere and say this. I say this to people in the department. I have brought some of my columns here. Oh, I think we forgot to say. No, we didn't forget to say that I am a writer, an opinion columnist, and nobody, who's going to tell the story of these women in prison? They're not going to tell the story, and who's going to believe them? Furthermore, they don't have enough self-worth to figure that everything that's happened to them isn't what should have happened to them. Because believe me, by their birth and family circumstances, they are exactly where they were destined to be. Who are these women? Well, I was abused by my father. I was abused by my mother's boyfriend. I was left alone. I hung out with my mother, who was a drug addict, and this is coming directly from them. We ate out of dumpsters. Fond memories. I can remember, says one, when my father was with us, we used to go to the beach very early in the morning at 5 o'clock and watch the sunrise. But then he left, and my mother was on drugs, and I ran away. So we have runaways. There are those women who actually, had a semblance of a good life. But basically, they are the products of their environment. They are fulfilling what was destined to be their journey. Every time I think of, what's her name? Chelsea Clinton, $600,000 on her first job. Destined by her birthright to do just that. So, where can these women go? Because the next chapter in their life is they will be released. When they are released, they are going to need those resources that the police chief tells them about. They are going to need to learn how to access those resources. And if people, all of us, can't commit ourselves to seeing to it that their children have a better life. Now, their children can only have a better life if they learn to have a better life. Life isn't given to us. Good times aren't given to us. It's something that we have to work at. Now, somebody says to me, so will my middle class friends say. Oh my gosh, why would you go to prison? What a waste of time. And you have such talent. And why are you teaching these women in prison? It's like, well, they get out. And whose kids do you think are robbing your house? And then suddenly they all get on the bandwagon. Oh, good job you're doing. Because that's what it gets down to. Those who go to prison, that's what their children know. One class, first day, we go around, we introduce ourselves. Why are you taking the class? One lady put her hand up and she said, I just want to see what you're up to. She said, I'm a lifer and my son's 18 and he's in prison for life for killing his friend. Class went quiet. So you have a wide range. We had another class participant. When she got her certificate at the end of the 20 hours, she said, you know, this is the first time I've ever gotten anything like this. Now that really makes you want to tear up, because it's just a piece of paper. She said the only reason I took this class is because I don't like my cellie, and I wanted to get away from her. She said, but it turned out to be something that's very useful, and I think I can do something with what I hear. It is very important for what they hear, because what they hear in our class, I think Ivan is the one who named it, the unique approach. It's not a book. Please turn to chapter 14, page 3. This is when they go, Miss Shirley, how come you telling us that? Because I'm 80 years old and I know. And they go, oh. So that's what I know. That's our program. I thank Ivan for having invited me. And I thank all of you for, oh, Buddy fell asleep, so that's... Yes, questions?
2 quick questions. How much does the Department of Children's Services get for an infant? And what is the rate of recidivism for those who don't take your class as opposed to the ones who take your class?
Neither of those are quick questions. Well, they may be quick questions. They're not quick answers.
Oh, okay.
I do not have the rate for what the department gets because it depends. There's several factors that go into what they will get from the feds in terms of an adoption. And I don't have that, so I hope there's somebody here. Oh, I forgot to file my disclaimer before I open my mouth. I am not a researcher. I am not a historian. I am an observer. So I don't have an answer to your question. But I hope, Gar,
Yes.
that you will look that up, and then you will email and tell me. And in my next presentation, I will add that and say Gar told me. Yes.
What should society be doing to prevent this whole, the people who are not acculturated into, you know, I come from a background where we learned home ec and we taught home ec
Yeah.
in schools, but that's gone. I mean, so, you know, there's other basic things, like you say, parenting. Where should society be in addressing this?
The issues of better parenting or the issues of the women behind bars? I'm not sure what you're asking.
To prevent the women from getting behind bars, or to address it.
This is what I would say, and it's very difficult for people to go, oh, is she kidding? What we have to do as individuals is each one teach one. I'm not looking for a huge revolution, but I know, see, I'm old. When you get gray hair, you can get away with many things. Oh, you can. You know, you can say to some 25-year-old with a little nuisance kid, you can go, honey, don't let that little boy do that. And they go, oh, it's a grandmother, you know. And you go, listen, That's not how children act. Now, everybody's going to have to figure out how they can do that on their own. But I know everyone in this room has been somewhere where some little kid was like, oh, she needs to, pardon me, have to be like the woman in my class. She needs to kick it. No. She needs to put a stop to that, right? You may have grandchildren. You know, and now we've got to this permissive society where everything is okay. It's not okay. It's not okay. She won't like this, but she looks at some online news thing, and it's really funny. You know, it's on YouTube. And I went in the kitchen and I was like, what is all this profanity? And she said, I've heard you curse. And I was like, yes, but it's for emphasis. I mean, they just, you know, their whole thing is... And finally, you know, I said, you know, this isn't good. And I waited, and the next night she had it back up, and I was like, not in my house. Because it's all, I can handle profanity. I'm nobody's prude. But I mean, that's all it is. And no. Nobody wants to say no anymore. Am I in left field? You know you have some grandkids that you like, if... No, we talk. I believe in talking first. No, we can't do that. So, as individuals, I believe we're responsible for each other. Now, I'm a belligerent lady. I already said that when I stepped up here. I don't care whether people like me. So I can step out and not do what's politically correct. So the answer, in short, I know I was long, is we have to stop trying to be politically correct and call things as we see them. Because as long as we don't, they continue to be out of hand. How do we help other people? I was in the bank one day right after 9/11, and I have a fat mouth. I don't know what I was running about. But a lady behind me, she tapped me on the shoulder. She said, you know what? Don't say things like that in public. And I haven't. So, I don't know who she was, but she knew that the climate in the country was changing. So yeah, I think we all have a responsibility, not just to the women in prison, but we have a responsibility to ourselves. Yes?
Do you have any women who have mental health issues, and how do you handle that? And then the second one, you get two in here, or language like Chicana, I mean...
Well, if they're going to take my
Spanish,
class,
yes,
it's an
right,
English
right.
class.
Yeah.
I grew up in Boyle Heights, but was too
Right.
stupid
To
to listen
learn
to my Mexican friends, so I speak no Spanish. I'm sure at the prison they do have some
Somebody
classes that
to do
address
that,
that,
yeah.
yes. Your other question was mental health. I will tell you, if you didn't have a mental health issue before you got locked up, you will have one after this. But they have a mental health unit there. So I don't have in my classes anyone that is designated. But believe me, if they're there, they, you know. Okay. Yes?
Have these women told you enough about their background that you know whether they've had extended families that tried to help them or not?
I don't get into their backgrounds. On occasion, in class discussion, such as one lady had on some fabulous, I don't guess they call them tennis shoes anymore, whatever people, Snicker, whatever they're, right, and I said, oh, those are fabulous. Her response was, because I asked, were they a prison issue? And she said, my family supports me, and they send me things, but it takes a long time for me to get them. So I don't run a class that gets into your background or who you are. I don't know anybody's crime, other than if they come up quietly and say to me, I'm in here for such and such. But I'm 80 years old and I forget most things, so I don't remember who told me what. That's why they can tell me things, because they surely will not know next week.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl.